So this is in the adapted review for chapter 10, and this is just the end of page 3. And so we're starting to look at Pythagorean relationships. And so we want to do a review of the Pythagorean theorem that you would have done in grade 8. Some of you did better at it than others. And we might need to do a bit more review of this in class, which is okay. It's a bit of a tricky subject for some of you. And so what the Pythagorean theorem says, if you have a right angle triangle, so you have a triangle, and it has a 90-degree angle. If you take the two smaller side lengths and turn them into squares, so this side length is 1, 2, 3, 4, so 4 by 4, and this side length is 3, so 3 by 3, and so 4 by 4 gives us 16, so if I counted there would be 16 squares in A, and B, 3 times 3 is 9, or if I counted there's 9 squares. So what that says, if I take those squares, so the 16 and then the 9, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the A box. And if I took the 9 from the B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 from the B, it would make the square of the area of the larger square, which it is. 9 plus 16 gives us 25, and there are 25 squares inside this larger square. And so the two side lengths, so the two smaller squares add up to the larger square. And if we wanted to find what that length is of the hypotenuse of this longer side, well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has a length of 5, or the square root of 25, which is 5. And so we'll do a couple practice of these, and like I said, if you need to do more practice in class, we will definitely do that. Okay, so one of the keys kind of before we start using the Pythagorean relationship is, first of all, we need to make sure that we have a right triangle. Okay, we've got a 90-degree angle, it's a right triangle, so we're good. The second thing is we need to figure out where the hypotenuse is, and then where the other side lengths are. So the best way to find the hypotenuse is to shoot an arrow through the 90-degree angle. It's like a bow and arrow, and the arrow will always point to the hypotenuse. And then the other side lengths, it doesn't matter what you call A, it doesn't matter what you call B. As long as the hypotenuse gets its own special letter, the other two you could really call whatever you want. But we'll call those A and B. And if I go back up here, we're going to say that this is the same as, okay, you might feel more comfortable using hypotenuse squared, because otherwise it's just all these letters that don't really make sense. And so we start by writing out our formula every time. And then we start by filling in. I'm going to leave the units out just for now, otherwise there's going to be a lot of letters being put out there that might get confusing. So we're going to say 15 squared plus 7 squared equals hypotenuse squared. So remember that 15 squared is the same as 15 times 15. And 7 squared is the same as 7 times 7. It is not 7 times 2, and it is not 15 times 2. So 15 times 15 gives us 225, plus 7 times 7, 49, equals h squared. I'm going to have to continue this up along the side. So now I'm going to add them. And so 225 plus 49 gives me 274. And so if I made a giant square off of the hypotenuse, there would be 274 squares of area inside. I don't want to know that. I want to know the length. So the way that I find the side length is we take the square root. And so when I go square root of, oops, I don't want cube root, I want square root. 274, we get 16.55, and so we're going to round it to the nearest whole number, and so that rounds to 17 centimeters as the length of the hypotenuse. So this length is 17 centimeters. Took up a lot of space on that one, geez. Okay, we're going to do the second one the same way. So the first thing we do is we make sure it's a right triangle. Yeah, we've got a 90-degree angle. Second thing we do, shoot an arrow through the right angle to point to the hypotenuse, and then label the other sides A and B. Doesn't matter which one's which. So we write our formula, a squared plus b squared equals hypotenuse squared. 17 squared plus 26 squared equals hypotenuse squared. And again, I'm leaving the units out so we don't have a bunch of letters. So 17 squared, that's the same as 17 times 17. So we get 289 plus 26 squared, which is 26 times 26, 676. So now I'm going to add them up. 289 plus 676 gives us 965. So that means the area coming off of the hypotenuse has an area of 965. But we don't want to know the area, we want to know the side length, so we are going to take the square root, and we get an answer of, oopsies, 31.06. So we're going to round to the nearest whole, and so we get 31 centimeters is the hypotenuse, so this length is 31 centimeters. Okay, so that's how we find the hypotenuse, but sometimes we need to find one of the other sides, one of the shorter sides. So in this example, we need to rearrange and use subtraction. Okay, so basically what it's saying is, here's my 90 degree, shoot an arrow through, this is the hypotenuse, and so we know the hypotenuse, and so the opposite of addition is subtraction, right? So up here, where we had to find the hypotenuse, we had to add. Down here, where we know the hypotenuse, we're going to subtract. So this is going to be our hypotenuse. Oops, I can't spell. So maybe let's change that. Let's change G to H, because otherwise it's going to be confusing. Again, more letters flowing around, right? Doesn't matter what letters you use. Let's try to always use H for hypotenuse. And so we have the hypotenuse, and we're going to take away the square of the smaller side length. So we're going to have the hypotenuse squared, 13 squared, take away the shorter side length of 12 squared. And so 13 squared, reminder, is the same as 13 times 13. 12 squared is the same as 12 times 12. So then we subtract them. So 25, that's the area coming off of this square for E, but we don't want to know the area, we want to know the side length. So then we take the square root to get the side length. Okay, so we're gonna solve these two. No, actually, I'm not gonna solve these two. You're gonna solve these two, and we can check them tomorrow. Keep in mind that you need to find the hypotenuse first. Okay.